More people every day are ditching animal products, embracing plant-based foods, and speaking up for what matters. With my experience as an international instructor for vegan nutrition and an award-winning author, I interview experts, innovators, and celebrities about the global movement towards a plant-based future. Do you want to learn how to combat the injustice in our food system affecting your health, the animals, and the planet? Well, you're in the right place. It all starts here with Eating Like You Give a Damn. Welcome to the Eating Like You Give a Damn podcast, the place to discover your passion for plant-based living, one bite at a time. I'm your host, Stephanie Harder. Researchers estimate that approximately 1 in 5 Americans suffers from one or more autoimmune disease. And it's estimated that up to 10% of the global population suffers. But many more suffer undiagnosed, which means that someone you know is suffering. Perhaps it's you? Autoimmune disease occurs when your immune system mistakenly attacks your body and causes your body to overreact to harmless allergens. And the autoimmune category consists of up to 100 diseases that are widely scattered over a number of medical specialties. So unfortunately, this leads to an exhausting journey of suffering while seeing multiple doctors over an extended period of time before even reaching a diagnosis, which was exactly where Dr. Benjamin Benulis unexpectedly found himself in his late 20s, before becoming a doctor, that is. Back then, when he was just Ben, he was suffering from extreme muscle aches, and he was in chronic pain, he was fatigued, he had severe digestive pain, which he describes as World War III going on in his intestines. And also eczema on top of that, which developed on his hands. So his health and his social life and his performance at work, it all tanked. He was even shuffled around from doctor to doctor for like a long period of time when finally someone suggested he take a food allergy test. And just wait until you hear what the results were and how he became highly motivated to heal himself when doctors couldn't. Today, Dr. Benjamin Benulis is a plant-based doctor of chiropractic in Phoenix, Arizona. After coming to a plant-based diet to reverse his own issues with autoimmune disease, he now helps people all over the world to do the same. He's even awesome enough to provide you with a blueprint that he created, which he wish he had had back in those days of chronic pain and misery. So be sure to listen to the end for that life-saving tool. Before we kick off the interview with Dr. Ben, I want to make sure you know that there is a free community of people in every stage of the process of kicking meat, dairy, and eggs out of their diet for different reasons. We all come together to inform and inspire one another to make more conscious food choices as it relates to our health, the animals affected by the food system, as well as the sustainability of our shared planet. You can request to join the revolution at eatinglikeyougivadamn.com/group. And now I'm excited to bring you the interview with Dr. Benjamin Benulis. All right, Dr. Ben Benulis, I am so excited that you're here. Thanks so much for joining us on the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent. Having a really good day. Real excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited that you're here too. So we actually got to meet very briefly. Well, I say meet, but we didn't actually like officially meet, but we were at the same workshop not too long ago. And so it was really cool to hear from some of the people in my network that you were there, even though we didn't officially get to, I didn't officially get to make your acquaintance, but I ended up finding something that you posted online, I think on Facebook. And I was so excited to see your journey and what you're doing and how you're helping people. And I thought, oh my God, it's perfect. I have to have you on the show.
I'm glad all that worked out because, there's a ton of people at that seminar, met a lot of really great people, but there's, plenty of people I didn't meet. So I'm glad we got to connect.
Yes, absolutely. I know there's always so many people. It's just impossible to meet everybody. But we're here now. So this is great because I know you've got some really great stuff to share. So what I'd like to start off by doing is kind of unpack your story a little bit about where you started out before you discovered a plant-based, vegan-friendly lifestyle. So what was life like for you before you made that discovery?
It's a good question. I lived a pretty normal life for the most part. I was working as an engineer in the microchip industry. I wasn't, I was living a pretty normal life as far as like working a normal like 8 to 5 white collar job. I had pretty much normal health my whole life. I did go vegetarian in my 20s just based on like ethics, and I had seen like a slaughterhouse video or two, and I thought, oh, that might be a good idea. And I had seen a turkey killed when I was young, and a fish gutted, and I had reasons that I didn't really want to continue eating meat, and so I did that. But as far as like health wise, like I was still on a diet of like burritos and pizza and just macaroni and cheese, like standard Western diet without the meat, with all the processed food and dairy products you could throw at me. And I was healthy my whole life. I was never overweight or anything like that. I never really had problems. And I remember like being at there'd be like some event at work, and they'd be handing out like cookies or brownies or something like that, and I would always be the guy that took two, because I could get away with it, And people would be like, oh, when you're older, it's going to catch up with you. And I would say, it's not going to catch up with me. I got good genes. I made it this far, which was ridiculous because my father's been overweight or obese his whole life, And but I just had it rationalized to myself, like, I'm invincible. This won't affect me. Ironically, being it did catch up to me, but not in the way that anybody ever expected. Right? I never gained a bunch of weight, but I started developing symptoms over the course of about a year. It started out really small, but I would say within 6 to 8 months, it had just like the volume had got turned up on it to where it was like really interfering with my life. So to give you an idea, started out with just like some general fatigue or feeling like I needed an extra boost, to the point where I was like, I had fatigue where I was sucking down 2 to 3 energy drinks a day, sleeping most of the weekend, and just always feeling tired, no matter how much I slept or whatever. And then I was having unexplained chronic pain that didn't seem to really, I didn't have any accidents or injuries. It just like my body ached a lot of the time. Muscles ached. Body just felt sore.
Now, how old were you around this time frame?
27-ish. This all happened around 27, 28. And so then my digestion just got really bad. Like it went from like, oh, a meal here or there, kind of felt like it, didn't digest the best or have a little bit of an upset stomach, to like pretty much every big meal I ate, like in severe pain, sometimes having to like lie down and clutch my sides and just kind of ride it out for an hour. And just, starting to almost avoid eating sometimes. I'm just like, oh, how is that gonna affect my stomach? I just became ruled by it. And then I also developed like eczema, which I had never had, but it was like a rash, and it was confined to certain parts of my fingers and my hands, but it was enough, like it was very visible, even though it was like, from about here to about here on both hands. It was very visible, and so I became like, I was self-conscious about it. I put my hands in my pockets and not try to show people my hands.
Right, and you were just pointing to, because I know listeners can't see us, but you were pointing from like your pinky, the outside of your pinky, all the way down to where your wrist kind of is, right?
Yeah, like in between the bottom knuckle and like part of the palm, basically.
Okay.
I don't know why. It was strange that it would be really severe there and then nowhere else. So yeah, and all these symptoms just kind of piled up on top of each other to the point where like it really started to interfere with my life. Like you can be a little sick, but then it was just like I was so fatigued and in pain, and just like my hands and my digestion, like I didn't want to go out and be social. I didn't want to like hang out with my friends. I just, spent a lot of time, like, a lot of weekends at home sleeping or playing video games. Like I just, and people would be like, thought I was depressed, and I guess I was to some degree, but it was just like I also just like didn't feel good, It's like no, like what do you call that? I don't know, but I just didn't feel good about life, and so like my social circle really shrank, and like my performance at my job really started to tank, where I was like employee of the year one year, and then the next year my boss is like, what's going on with you? You're like one of the best people I had ever, and now you're like really performing poorly, and you better get your act together, because when January comes around and I do your performance review, if you're still at this level, I'm gonna have to fire you.
Ooh, that's hard to hear.
Yeah, and it was a company where they didn't Like there's some companies where you can be a really poor performer and they'll just kind of keep you on as long as you behave.
Yeah.
This company was like, if you're not performing, you're out. We can hire someone better. So, which was kind of nice, but at the same time, it's like, hey, your job's on the line. You don't do it, you lose it.
Right.
So I really felt like my life was shrinking, my social life, my work. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like I was starting to get this sense of impending doom. Because, and my health, as a side effect, my career, my job were going downhill, and as a side effect, my social life was going downhill, but my physical health was eroding.
Sure. So you found yourself in a lot of physical and emotional pain, and you were finally, at some point, moved to want to do something about that. So what was it? What was that moment that you finally decided to do something different?
Sure. Well, just to back it up, I did start, eventually started going to see doctors, and, it's just on a regular PPO insurance plan. So you're getting sent to the medical doctor who, really has no clue about autoimmune conditions, couldn't really diagnose me, ran lab work. Oh, we'll refer you to this guy. We'll refer you to that guy. And everybody just kind of looked at the lab work and was like, oh, this looks pretty much normal. So, you're probably fine, and just kind of got the runaround, like no one could really figure out the problem, and since they couldn't figure out the problem or see it on a sheet that said, like, this is what's wrong, they just kind of acted like it was no big deal and just, like, shuffled me off to the next person, which is, it's tough. Like, I wish someone would have been like, hey, I see, like, okay, maybe it doesn't, you're telling me about these symptoms, and maybe nothing adds up on the lab work, but, like, something's wrong, and I'm going to help you, I'm going to help you figure it out. That no one said that to me, because it was just sort of like, just whatever. Like, I can't figure this out, so you must be okay.
Yeah, and I know that there's so many people that go through this very thing that you went through with the doctors. I mean, people that I know in my own family, I've seen them shuffled from doctor to doctor and nobody ever being able to pinpoint what's going on.
Yeah, and I think to some degree it's pride. Like for me, that happens sometimes when people come to me and they're like, I got this going on, and, I'll, run exams, run labs, check things, try courses of treatment for a limited time, and, like, they're not getting any better. I want to tell them, like, hey, I can't help you. Here's some things I think might be going on. Here's some people I can refer you to who, like, I think could help you, but I really don't like that. Like, since I've been through that, I can't do that to other people now. I just can't.
What were some of the steps that you started to take in your journey to kind of recover your health?
Okay, so again, I didn't even really answer your last question completely. It kind of went off on a tangent. So what really changed was someone told me, oh, well, if you're having digestive problems, you should get a food allergy test. And I was like, oh, I don't think I have any food allergies. Like, I've lived my whole life and never had problems. They're like, but, well, you have problems now. Like, maybe you developed a latent one, which seemed absurd. Like, how could you develop food allergies later in life? And now, after studying this stuff for years and years and years, I'm like, oh, well, I know the exact mechanism of how it happens, and I can explain that. But at the time, I was like, well, got nothing to lose. Like, might as well know. No doctor ever, like, said I should get it. So I went and did that, and got the results back, and I was like very eager to know what was going on with the lab results. And the guy calls me up on like a Friday afternoon. He says, okay, well, Mr. Benulis, we've reviewed your lab results, and you actually came up as allergic to quite a few things. And he said, so on a scale of 1 to 7, which I don't know where they come up with these numbers, but 1 to 7, you scored a 7 for the following foods. And it was like dairy, soy, wheat, brewer's yeast, gluten, casein. Is just like, it was basically like everything I was eating, soy, everything I was eating at the time in large amounts was like everything I was allergic to. So I was like, oh man, well, that's bad news. I'm thinking to myself. So I said to the guy, well, like, okay, so what medication do you give me? Because that's the level of consciousness I was at. I was like, obviously, you did the allergy test. You told me what the disease was. Now you give me the medicine that's the cure. Like, obviously, right?
Right. That's the obvious thing.
That's just what my expectations were. It made any logical sense. You go to a doctor, they diagnose you with a disease, and then they give you a pill that treats the disease. So I was pretty incensed when he said to me, oh, well, there's no medicine for this. Like, you just have to cut these foods out of your diet. And it was like record scratch, like, what? Excuse me? Did I hear that correctly?
Like everything that I eat, basically?
Yeah, like, what am I going to eat? Like gluten-free air sandwiches, So then that became the quest of like, okay, what can I eat? And, when you're thinking in terms of this model of like, okay, I can't eat gluten, I can't eat soy, I can't, like, you're just thinking like, okay, I got to get the gluten-free, you know, soy-free, dairy-free, you know, fun-free Amy's macaroni and cheese, okay? And so I'm going to the grocery store, and I'm racking up like $200 grocery bills, buying all this like basically like gluten-free processed food. I'm buying all this stuff, and you know, it's tasting like cardboard, and I'm feeling maybe like 15% better. And it's costing me a lot of money, and this is like a giant hassle. And because I had this basically like lazy mentality of like, I don't like to cook, I don't want to have to like learn how to make recipes or anything. Like, I'm busy, you know, I'm a man, like I've this like I'm not gonna learn how to cook. It's just not in the cards for me. But I knew that all this like food I was eating was not working for me. So put my like lazy man brilliance to work, and I was like, okay, well, if this food's not working for me, what I can maybe do is start drinking smoothies. Because it's kind of like microwave food. Like, you get a bunch of stuff, you put it in, you close the lid, and then you push a button, and like 30, 60 seconds later, like, food's ready, right? Like,
Voila. Yeah.
That's like the microwave philosophy. And here I was just like hacking the system and applying like the microwave mentality to fruits and vegetables, you know, which who would have thought they'd be healthier than packaged processed foods you buy in the frozen aisle? Hadn't occurred to me, you know?
Right.
And so I'm just like doing the smoothie thing because it's like let's give this like smoothie. That's got to be healthy, right? So I'm just throwing like whatever's in the fridge in the blender. You know, it's like broccoli and like you know, strawberries and like whatever is available, mixing all in, like hoping to hell that it actually tastes decent, right? Which,
yeah,
you know, maybe like 40% of the time it did, and then, you know, maybe like 40% of the time it tasted okay, and like 20% of the time it's just completely unpalatable, had to throw it away. So maybe I should look up some recipes, you know, like maybe I can make them taste better. So you go and you search, you know, smoothie recipes on YouTube, and this is like 2010-ish, and it just opens you up to a whole other world you didn't even know existed. So I found this guy, Dan McDonald, The Life Regenerator on YouTube.
Right, yes.
And so at the time, he was like living in an RV out in the woods in Washington State. Shirtless, shoeless guy, like ex-drug addict, and would just make these videos. And back then, YouTube was like 10 minutes, like absolutely 10 minutes. And so every video was like, you know, 2 minutes of him making the recipe, and then 8 minutes of him just like jibber-jabbering about like spirituality or nutrition or health or some arcane topic that I was just like thinking to myself, like, dude, just shut up and like make the recipe, you know? But that was my introduction to it. And I was just like, okay, like I kind of got caught up in it. Like, I was just like, that was my foot in the door, and it just sent me down this rabbit hole that like, you know, completely changed my life.
Wow. Okay. So what were some of the other things that you were learning there in YouTube University?
Basically just completely shifting my paradigm on how health works.
Yeah.
Like, we're taught this Western paradigm of like, diseases just happen to you by bad luck, you know, and that's why there's medical doctors, because they just give you drugs or they cut a certain part out of you, and then voila, problem fixed, right? Like, symptoms suppressed. And so this concept of like, well, you actually like do things that cause health. Like, there's a cause of disease, perhaps, but more importantly, there's a cause of health, and one of those things is the food that you eat. Other thing is like the sleep that you get, the sunshine you're exposed to, the exercise that you get, the you know, how well you manage your stress. All these things conspire to create health, and instead of focusing on suppressing disease, fighting disease, you got to fight cancer. There's a war on cancer. There's a war on this and drugs, and it's like, no. Let's focus on what we want. Let's create health. Let's put the proper inputs into the organism, and then we'll get the proper outputs, as opposed to just like trying to play with the circuit board and rewire everything. Like, let's just put things where they're supposed to go, do things how nature evolved doing, and we should get like pretty good results.
Right.
And so I was like just slamming the fruits and vegetables and the smoothies and the green juices just super hard, and I was just getting caught up in, you know, at first I thought this guy was a total nut job, but like I kept watching, right? Like I was getting value out of it, and like part of me knew deep down that like maybe he was onto something, because my health started to improve. Like, these symptoms just started to go away within 2 to 3 months. Like, the chronic pain was gone, the digestion had got like worlds better, the skin rash was gone, the energy levels were up, like the brain fog lifted, and then it just like the health kept going. Like, I got to that set point of where I had been. And then I was like, I just kept feeling better.
And was that the expected outcome?
No. I was just trying to eat food that didn't make my stomach feel like hell, honestly. Like, I didn't see the connection with any of the other symptoms. I just wanted to like be able to eat without it being like World War III in my intestines. That's all I was going for, right?
I hear you.
And then I just lucked out essentially and experienced like all these other benefits.
Well, that's incredible. So once you got to that point, what were some of the challenges that you started to run into?
I think the main thing is that it wasn't very socially acceptable. My partner at the time was not on board with it, trying to do this stuff at work at a corporate job, and you're like drinking these giant smoothies at work, and people are calling you fruit boy, and and then you're like, no, guys, this is amazing, like this saved my life, and you're trying to tell your friends, and everyone just like thinks you're crazy.
Sure.
So you feel like you're living in this bizarro world where it's like you found this great thing that's really improved your life, and you want to share with everybody else to know. Like if you just start making green smoothies, like you're gonna feel so much better. It's like, right. I'm not the infomercial on public television or the after school special. It's like, remind you to eat your broccoli. I'm like, legit, this is really gonna help you, But everyone looks at you like I don't want to hear it, So that was a challenge, and there's other challenges like, okay, like how am I going to, keep all this produce in my house and make sure I always have ripe stuff, where I'm going to source like high quality stuff, how am I going to do it? I can't just spend $400 a week on groceries, like I got to figure out but I was willing to figure out all those challenges. Like I was like, there's a way it can be done, like I was determined. A lot of people can kind of let those excuses stop them, but I was like, I saw the benefit, so I was willing to work around all the possible barriers and just get it figured out. Like there's got to be a way. These other people do it, I can do it, So I'm curious about the partner that I guess you were sharing a household with. If they're seeing these incredible changes in you and you're getting better and you're feeling amazing, how come she wasn't or he wasn't able to get on board with that? I don't know. I think it brought up just some of her own demons with some of her own stuff that was going on, because when I was sick, she thought I was just kind of overplaying it or being dramatic. So then it was when I got well, it was okay, now you're just acting weird, and but ultimately there were other issues in the relationship that just it just brought them to the surface, and we ended up splitting up, but it was sort of a long time coming, and it sort of forced her out of my life when she probably shouldn't have been there for we were better off without each other. But it brought other problems that had sort of been buried to the surface that just had to be dealt with. So I mean, I don't see it as a bad thing, and I think she just didn't get it, what I was going through, and a lot of people don't, but that's okay. But I'm here to speak to the ones who can be helped and are eager to hear what I have to say. And if people disagree or want to bash me, it's okay. Can't do much about that. I'm just here to help the people that want to be helped. There you go. That's perfect. And then about your job. So as you're experiencing all these changes and these improvements in your health, did that help your performance at work as well? Did your boss take notice? Yeah, it was kind of funny. It got to a point where the job became a joke. It got so easy. I would finish work at 4:00 every day. I'd just be there'd just be nothing left to do. And so for a while I would just kind of sit at my desk and just kind of try to kill time till 5:30 and then leave, without looking, like I was slacking. And then I thought, oh, hey, what we could do? There's a bunch of broken processes in the company. There's just things that don't work in certain systems that aren't, if we tweak them and fix them, it would save me a bunch of hassle, and it would save other people in the company a bunch of hassle. So I'm going to start just as my pet project, fixing certain things in the company, right? And then everyone loves it, and then I'm getting done work at 2:30 or 3 every day, sitting there scratching my head, being oh man, I'm going to automate myself out of a job. So yeah, it helped, but then I had this new level of consciousness about what I was doing. We were making for a long time. I was involved. We had this new chip that was going in all these TVs in Japan, and I was oh, we're gonna sell 1 million of these to Panasonic and Sony and blah blah blah, and I was but I'm thinking I don't even watch TV anymore. It's I can't even handle it. It's just so mind numbing, and all the ads are for prescription drugs and junk food, and I don't want anything to do with either of those things.
Oh man, I know exactly how you feel.
People need the prescription drugs because they're eating the junk food. Not that the prescription drugs really solve the problem. The pills don't really cure the ills. That's another conversation. But yeah, it was just like, oh, I don't want to have a part of this. What really like struck me is like the moment when of waking up, like, oh, I can't stay here. I mean, the company was great. Like, not that anything unethical or immoral was going on, and like, it was like they treated me really well, and I worked with great people. Like, I have no qualms, but it was just like the bigger picture of what we were trying to do just didn't resonate with me anymore. And I remember one of the things I was involved with was like the sales and marketing forecast to the factory, where basically we have to decide what the market is going to buy from us and then go tell our manufacturing to go build that. And so there's a whole process of like making sure that we get the right data and we understand what the market really wants, so when we build material we can actually sell it, right? I remember we had this one meeting with the marketing guys for this one particular branch of microchips, and they're like, oh, good news, guys. Like, we just got back from our meeting in China, and we met with this company, and they're a longtime customer, and they made like glucose measuring devices, like basically those devices for diabetics where you like it pricks your finger and then you put the blood on it and then it tells you like, oh, your blood glucose is 110 or 94 or whatever. And so for type 1 and type 2 diabetics, they use this device to measure their blood sugar. So it's really more of a diagnostic device. So we were selling chips that went into these, and they come back and they're like, guys, we just got news from the manufacturer. Like, the diabetes market is like exploding. Just it's like by 2020, this thing we're gonna like 2.5x it. Like, and we got this chip. We designed it like 15 years ago, so we got the manufacturing cost down to like 7 cents. But then we can sell it to this company for like $1.05, and we can just make money like hand over fist. Like, this diabetes thing is just going to be like huge, and they're all sitting there thinking they're like, this is so awesome, right? And I'm just like,
oh yeah, that's great for business. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know the cause of type 2 diabetes, and I know how to reverse it. None of them do. Everybody thinks it's an incurable condition. So I'm just like watching in slow motion, like, oh my God, like they just don't know. They just don't know. Like, everybody thinks they're doing a good thing. I mean, they're doing the best that they know. And they're like, obviously some very smart people had to design these microchips and these blood sugar devices and all that. But it's like, you're not treating the root cause of the problem. You're just basically like capitalizing on the fact that the problem's getting worse and you don't have really like a solution per se. But anyway, it was like a wake up call. I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I just can't do this as a career.
Yeah, your conscience just at that point is just not going to let you continue down that path. So I'm guessing this is how you ended up starting down the path to becoming a doctor.
Yeah, that was it. And, part of it was also I was pretty disillusioned with the healthcare system. And, I had a lot of medical doctors in my family. I had always accepted that it was the predominant paradigm. It worked. Like, anybody who was practicing any sort of alternative modality was just because they couldn't get into med school. And, having my own bad experience and then, like, getting well by eating fruits and vegetables did better than any doctor could do. Like, it made me reevaluate, like, that, but also many other things. So it's like, well, if that whole medical paradigm is kind of, faulty, then, like, all those other things, like, I have to question now, too. Like, oh, God, I have to, like, completely reevaluate my values and my morals and my, like, what I believe to be true. And it was, like, a real, like, it was a lot to process. And so, my relationship ended, and I was like, I hit 30, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, maybe this career isn't right for me, maybe, like, I have to reevaluate that too. And so that just went into, like, deep soul searching. And like I said, I'd had that experience where, it kind of got shuffled around by the medical system. So I thought, man, like, I'm not even a doctor, but, like, I could do a better job. Like, if you just put me in their office and people like me came to them, like, I could do a better job than they ever did. I don't even have a degree. And then I was thinking, well, I have a science background. I was, like, majored in mechanical engineering. Like, I understood chemistry, math, physics, like, some biology. Like probably, like, maybe I could do a better job. And it was like, I was looking for something else to do. The gears started turning, and started, reaching out to people. I had a really good plant-based medical doctor in Austin where I was living. I reached out to her. She, like, wrote me a letter of recommendation. Like, everybody I talked to was like super supportive. So I thought I was going to do naturopathy because I knew I didn't want to do like drugs and surgery. I knew that like that wasn't an
Mm-hmm.
offering I felt comfortable giving people. I knew it wasn't the best option. It's an option. It's great for certain emergency acute situations, but for handling chronic disease, it's like so inferior. It like doesn't fix the problem. So I didn't want to like invest all this time and money learning that only to say, oh, well, I learned all, but I don't actually do it because it doesn't actually work here. Like do this instead. Like it just seemed silly. So I was going to do naturopathy, but then I found out it wasn't licensed in Texas where I was living. That basically like you could be a naturopath, but you couldn't be a doctor, and you had a limited scope of what you could do. And like only like I think 26 out of the 50 states have naturopathy license, which is unfortunate. We need to get it in all 50 states. I'm a big proponent of naturopathic medicine. So I decided I could enroll in chiropractic school and basically have this drugless healing art that I knew had, close to no side effects and was health promoting and, all natural. I'm just using my hands, and then I could everything in terms of nutrition was in the scope. They taught nutrition in chiropractic school. It actually seemed like a better fit because I could do more than if I was just like a naturopathic doctor or a medical doctor. So that's what I decided to do.
And my mother-in-law, actually, she found her second career as a chiropractor as well, for all of the same reasons that you're talking about now. She was previously a dental assistant for many, many years. That was her profession. And then, she just started getting tired of what she was seeing around her and made the switch. And it's just amazing to see, the intensity of the schooling. And she was so excited to learn all these different things about natural healing, the nutrition, and of course, healing the body with just, the touch of another person's hand is just incredible.
Sorry to interrupt. If you're listening, you're like thinking, man, it's too late for me. Like I'm, 30 or I'm 40 or I'm 50. Like it's never too late. Like, because, 5 years from now, you're going to be doing the same
Right.
thing you were doing. You're going to be 5 years older. Like, and if you're like thinking about it, this resonates with you, definitely like check the show notes and please contact me. I'd be more than happy to have a conversation and encourage you. And I think it's never too late to change your career.
Fantastic. So then what did that look like for you as you made that transition out of school and starting your own practice? Did you focus mainly on nutrition, or what does your practice look like?
I definitely, it was one thing I thought, oh, I'm never really gonna like do much of this adjusting stuff. Like it's fun, but it's not me. And then when I was in school, I just like kind of fell in love with it, and I found it a technique that I really liked. So I got into it, and I just started to practice doing primarily working with like spinal conditions, and then just decided to build the nutrition part of it just from doing like speaking and workshops and stuff like that. Like I feel like that's something that's better taught in groups than one-on-one. Because like if I'm gonna sit down with you and like coach you and everything, like this is gonna be an expensive endeavor. But I can put on a seminar and teach a bunch of people like a much lower price point. So I like doing both. If I had to narrow it down to just one, I'd have a tough time only doing one of the two.
Yeah, of course. As far as your seminars are concerned, or the workshops that you put on, typically, who are you reaching out to? Are you talking specifically about, overcoming autoimmune disease and digestive disorders? Or are you kind of running the whole gamut as far as nutrition is concerned by promoting a plant-based lifestyle for many different conditions?
I stick to the autoimmune stuff. I mean, I know that it's prophylactic for a variety of chronic disease conditions, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, stuff like that, obesity. But I feel like I have a certain mission and I have a certain story that resonates with just certain people that's not being served, and I got to focus on serving them. And I could talk this big game about all these different other subjects that I really don't have much experience with personally. Like, yes, I interned at True North for 3 months. I saw the sickest of the sick with like high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, rare autoimmune conditions, cancers, the weirdest stuff you've never even heard of. It's in no medical textbook, but someone had to deal with it, right? So I've seen all that, people heal from all that stuff. But the lecturing that I do and the workshops I do focus around autoimmune because that's what I feel like I can serve people the best. So I focus on that.
I think I saw somewhere that you actually got to train a little bit with Dr. Michael Clapper, who is very prominent in the plant-based and vegan community. What was it like working with him?
Well, this is a story that, it's going to surprise some people. So Dr. Clapper, now, I lucked out. Like, I interned at True North in, like, the last few months of 2016, and he left shortly thereafter. And he's doing amazing things now. He's, like, traveling the world, lecturing at medical schools, like, doing what he's supposed to be doing. Like, he can make way more of an impact doing that than, like, treating fasting patients at the clinic. Like, they give plenty of other people who can do it. And so he's an amazing guy. I mean, he's like, he's like been doing this for like 40 plus years, and he's seen it all, heard it all, done it all, knows it all to like an absurd degree. And so basically, what they did was that every Wednesday morning, you do all the rounds with Dr. Clapper, and then you would sit in his office and he would quiz you and just like hammer you with all these questions. And like he treated the interns like it was medical school in like 1970. Like he hammered you with questions. It was like if you started to slip up or say something wrong, he would just hit you with a Socratic. Oh, so what's really going on here? Well, is the liver really hemorrhaging enzymes, Ben? Is that what's really going on? And then you'd backpedal and try to explain, and you'd be like, I don't think you know what you're talking about. You're gonna sound like an idiot. You can't be like going out and practice and like, so he would like really ride people hard, and like some of the other interns cried. Like straight up.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of funny because there's like, I'm Dr. Clapper and I'm a friendly guy, and that's what most people know. But if you're an intern, like he wanted the best out of you, and he was not afraid to do what he had to get it out of you, and make sure you knew your stuff when you were coming out of there. So it really shaped me. It really leveled my skills up as far as like diagnosis and like stuff like that. Physiology, pathophysiology, like he really put me through the fire, and I learned a heck of a lot under him, and it wasn't easy. So that's the Dr. Clapper story.
Well, that's good because that's made you the most amazing doctor that you are today now. So it's great.
Absolutely.
Now, I also saw somewhere that you got the opportunity to work with Mr. Robert Cheek.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Very infamous vegan bodybuilder and educator on vegan lifestyle. So tell us a little bit about that.
It's kind of funny. It's like, because the story with him goes back, and there's a lot of like, we hung out and then we kind of lost touch for a few years, and then we like talked again. Anyway, 2005, I'm on this MySpace page for vegetarians, and he friends me on MySpace. And he's like super self-promotional. People don't know Robert Cheek. He's like published author, written a bunch of books on like vegan fitness, vegan bodybuilding. He's like competed as a bodybuilder. He's been vegan for like 20 plus years. I got quite a few stories about the man. Anyway, original introduction was 14 years ago on MySpace, and he was posting all this stuff about being a vegan, being a bodybuilder, and I'm looking at the pictures like, man, vegetarian, maybe you could do it. This guy's got to be on juice, Ironic thing is he's like vegan, like 100% drug-free, never had a sip of alcohol, never touched a drug, never like done any of that stuff. All around good guy.
Right.
In 2012, he moved to Austin, and I was working out at this gym that this vegan guy basically had in his garage, and he talked Cheek and some other people into coming, and we started working out together. And funny enough, Robert aggravated an old back injury and couldn't lift anymore. And then this was even before I had thought about going to chiropractic school. And years later, like I moved to Phoenix. He was in Phoenix. I ended up becoming his chiropractor. And this is like not HIPAA violation. He's made videos with me. We've talked about it. He was my patient and helped him heal from like a very severe and chronic back injury that had been going on and off for years. And got him lifting again and everything. But we had worked out back in the day at this guy's garage in Austin. And we ran like an ultra marathon together at one point. Like, yeah, a lot of stuff has happened with him over the years, but he's like such a boon to the movement. I mean, he basically, for so many people, like basically showed the fact that you could be vegan and fit, that you could be vegan and a bodybuilder. This was a possible thing. And so he kind of paved the way. And then you got guys like, Derek Treesize and Ryan Nelson and these other huge vegan guys who have just like sort of taken what he's had and just run with it, So, yeah, he's an amazing guy.
Nice. That's so great that you were able to, you established that communication over so many years and that you were able to help him overcome an injury. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So bringing us back around to how you help your patients, as particularly with diet and lifestyle changes. So when you're coaching or you're talking to your patients or your audience, about recovering from an autoimmune disorder or recovering from digestive issues. Do you find that many people don't really know that severe allergies, food allergies, are autoimmune?
Yeah, I think it's, that whole thing is still being understood. And yeah, food allergies are definitely, it's an immune reaction, so it involves the immune system. Whether you want to say it's autoimmune or not is kind of debatable. And this is one of those things where the Dunning-Kruger effect takes place. It's like the more you know, like the less you feel confident in it. I've been like studying this, and it's like I just accumulate knowledge about like intestinal permeability and like IgG and I'm like, I don't really understand quite how it works. I feel like 5 years ago, I felt like I knew a lot more, even though I know a lot less. But it's definitely the immune system is involved for sure. And like the food that you eat is hugely important.
Mm-hmm.
There are ways to heal from food allergies. I have done it. I don't quite understand why or how because there were many factors going on at the same time. So it's hard to pinpoint like what exactly healed me. But like, hey, if you do this short list of things, like you're probably gonna get results.
So then you started with the smoothies, and now what did that progress into? What does your diet look like now in order to maintain your healthy body and keep autoimmune disease free?
Sure. So I still do like a primarily raw diet. I do eat some cooked whole foods, but I primarily do like a fruit-based raw type diet where I'm like a lot of fruit that changes with the seasons. Usually first meal of the day is some kind of high water fruit. Second meal of the day is like some kind of smoothie, usually a green smoothie. And then third meal of the day is like usually a salad and possibly some fruit and some cooked vegetables in terms of like potatoes, sweet potatoes, broccoli, steamed greens, whatever, stuff like that. Tend to stay away from the grains still and definitely stay away from anything processed.
So as you're coaching your patients and anybody that you're talking to, do you find that a lot of people will have a hard time even imagining getting to that point where they're starting to feel healthy by making these sort of changes? Do you find that they're complaining about, oh my God, I don't know if I can give up my, fill in the blank?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a common problem, and so like these workshops that I do, we focus on diet, but like we also got to focus on mindset. Like you gotta know why you're doing this, why it's so important for you to succeed, and like really have your understanding of like your why, so we can really like build that motivation. Because I think a lot of times, yeah, people just don't want to believe it's possible, and a lot of times, like to some degree, like the autoimmune disease, it's big. Like it's 25 million people diagnosed, another 25 million or so undiagnosed, like 50 million people in the United States affected. There's a lot of people out there selling potions and lotions and powders and tricks and trades and stuff that like sounds kind of good. It's like supplements and stuff and that's big money to be made, to sell people a consumable product versus coach them how to change their diet. So a lot of people have kind of gotten scammed, tried a bunch of things that like in the alternative world that didn't work, and so they're skeptical, and they should be, because a lot of these people who are formulating this stuff are like, oh, this autoimmune thing looks like it could be the next big market. Like, let's make a product that could. They don't have any experience with it firsthand. And I'm sitting here like, man, I've been through this. Like, I know what works and what doesn't because I tried all the stuff that doesn't work. Believe me. Here's what you got to do. And I was at a point where it was just like, I was at so rock bottom. I was willing to do what it takes. And some people, they're not quite there yet at the rock bottom, thankfully. And so we got to work on mindset and we got to work on like their why and, getting them inspired, getting them motivated, keeping them inspired is, just as important as learning nutrition. Because, like, let me tell you, I can tell you the nutrition portion of it. Eat lots of fruits, eat lots of vegetables, eat lots of plants. Done. End of story. Okay? But, like, going out and implementing that is not easy. So you got to have other things in place to make sure it happens.
Absolutely. And I agree with that, starting with the why 100%. That's exactly where I started with my book, The Skinny on Eating Like You Give a Damn, is making sure that the reader is able to address why they're about to start making these changes. Because without that, I mean, you're just going to fall victim to so many of the other mixed messages that are out there. I mean, we've got diets coming out the wazoo. Just seems like every couple of months there's a new fad diet out there that's promising all of these things that people want and desire for their life. What would you say to something like that, to a patient that's talking about all of the different diets that are available to them right now? Isn't there something else that can work? Do we really have to go plant-based?
I pretty much have, maybe this is to my detriment, but I was like, hey, this is what works. You're gonna need some time. You're gonna need 2 to 3 months to like really implement it, to like really see sustained results. So if you're like looking for the next shiny thing that you can, do a quick 2 week weight loss, or like, this is gonna fix it in some short amount of time, and you want results now, like it's probably not the right time for you to try this. Maybe later will be, but like if it's gonna work, you got to be committed. If you're not, I understand it's not an easy change to make, but I'm really only one to work with people who are committed. Because if you're not, like, you just can't get results. Like, I wish you could. Sorry. Like, good luck with that stuff. I mean, I could write you a litany of why it won't work, but you're not going to listen if you're dead set on doing it. But you can come back to me later and say, okay, maybe you were right. Maybe I'll give it a try.
So can you share a success story with us that somebody that you've able to help completely transform their life and improve their health through your nutritional specifications?
Sure. So I had an old buddy of mine from high school who I guess we lost touch after high school, but he apparently, when he was in college, got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, which is an autoimmune disease where your body attacks your large intestine and you have blood in your stool, and it's extremely unpleasant and painful, and probably one of the worst autoimmune diseases you can get. Like, it just sounds god-awful. I've never experienced it personally, but talk about something ruining your life. It won't kill you, but it will make your life extremely unpleasant. And so he'd been just going the medical route for like 20 years. And maybe not that long, but a while. Basically getting put on immunosuppressant drugs that would like suppress the immune system, and the body wouldn't attack the colon as bad. But so it would sort of slow the progression of the disease, and it would kind of turn you into an AIDS patient because your immune system's suppressed. Like this, in terms of solution, like it wasn't the best. Like he still had the disease, it was still causing him problems. Maybe just not as much as if he'd not taken the drug. But then of course there's side effects too. So it's a lot to weigh. Anyway, he goes in for this yearly or every 6 months or however often they were scoping, sticking the tube up his rear end. It's like, see how his colon was doing, and they're like, "Phew, it's bad. It's real bad. Like, we got to cut this thing out. It's time to go." Which cutting your colon out means that you have to get this thing called the colostomy bag, where you don't have bowel movements the normal way anymore. They go into a plastic bag on the side of your stomach, which sounds terrible.
Right.
And it was enough to motivate him to go, wow, I don't want to do that. I got to figure something else out. And so he started like researching, and he stumbled across my stuff. I mean, probably because we were friends on Facebook, or I don't know. And he came to me for help, and I was like, okay, I got you. Like, we'll do this. You on board? And he was facing getting his colon cut out, so he was motivated.
No kidding.
And so he was a teacher, and so put him on a program. Over the summer, he just stuck to the plant-based diet program, high raw. And, very particular about things, and went to go get it scoped. Then the summer when school is starting again, and the doctors are like, we don't know what the heck happened. Like this, something got mixed up, because this is like a normal colon that we're looking at. It's like, oh, well, this chiropractor over in California, like, put me on this, this, like, fruit-based diet thing, and they're just like, yeah, whatever. Like, you're good, get out of here. Didn't want to hear it. But anyway, reversed the disease. So
that's fantastic. It's like he's got a new lease on living a normal life again.
Yeah, all vital organs intact.
Yes. So just for the general population then, what advice would you share to listeners who are kind of teetering on the edge of transitioning to a plant-based, vegan-friendly lifestyle, whether for ethics, for their health, for the environment? What are some helpful tips that you could probably give them from your perspective?
I would just say, if you're like thinking about it, teetering on it, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't, maybe I'll do a little bit, maybe just like give it a real go for like 30 days. If you got an autoimmune disease, you might need to give it a real go for like 60 to 90 to 120 days. But give it a real go for a protracted period of time, and like 100% all in, do it, and see how you feel. Okay? Because the proof's in the pudding. All right, I can get up here and talk all day about I healed from an incurable disease and I help other people do the same and it's amazing. But like if you don't experience it firsthand, you don't know. And so if you want to know how good it really is, like you got to do it for yourself. And if you don't like it, you can always go back, all right? But I think for a lot of people, that permanent change of like, I'm going to become a vegan or I'm going to never eat cheese again in my life is very daunting. Like the brain is like that kind of level of change the brain just doesn't want to have to deal with. But if you trick it and say, hey, just for the next 30 days, just the month of July, we're just going to go bonkers on the fruits and vegetables because it's the summer and they're all in season and we're just going to eat as many of them as we can and that month we're just going to do it. The brain can be like, oh, yeah, I can do 30 days. Yeah, that would be a little difficult, but okay. And then you give yourself reference experience of like knowing how good it was. You figured out how to do it all logistically. This wasn't as hard as I thought. And then all of a sudden you're thinking, well, I don't want to stop. This was going well. So that's my advice is just give it a 100% go for at least 30 days.
That's fantastic wisdom. Now share with us how we can reach out to you, where your practice is, and how people can get in contact with you.
Sure. If you're suffering with an autoimmune disease, I wrote a free ebook. It's called the Autoimmune Recovery Blueprint. Basically shows you everything. Like it's basically the book I wish I'd had back in 2010 when I got sick and I had to figure it all out. Like condensed into 8 pages. Everything, like the nuts and bolts of what you need to know is in that. www.autoimmunerecoveryblueprint.com. It'll be in the show notes. Private practices in Phoenix, Arizona. I do talks and seminars out here. I'm also a practicing chiropractor. Practice is called Life Unfolds Chiropractic. Website is lifeunfolds.co. You can also find me, just my name, Dr. Benjamin Benulis, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Probably use Instagram the most of any of the social media platforms. Feel free to reach out to me there with a DM. I'm probably on that one the most.
Awesome. Well, it has been absolutely amazing talking with you today. And for listeners, make sure you check out those show notes for all of those links. I'll have them posted there. And Dr. Ben Benulis, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Stephanie. It was wonderful. Thank you.
That was Dr. Benjamin Benulis. Ain't he cool? Don't forget to follow him on Facebook and Instagram, and make sure you let him know that you heard him here on the Eating Like You Give a Damn podcast. That link again to get access to his ebook is autoimmunerecoveryblueprint.com, so you can get the quick start guide to healing from autoimmune disease. If you're getting value from this podcast, I would love it if you could subscribe and leave a review. Your review helps others who are looking for this kind of information to help them to decide to listen and to subscribe themselves. Another thing you could do to help me spread the message is to take a screenshot of this episode and post it to your favorite social media channel. And when you do, don't forget to tag Eating Like You Give a Damn so I can share your post as well. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and Dr. Ben. And until next time, veg on, rebels.